How can we improve the education system? The current system stifles children's creativity and curiosity, which leads to boredom and disinterest in learning. One study found that almost half of students are bored at school on a daily basis, and 17% of students are bored in every single class throughout the day. This is problematic because boredom decreases motivation and academic performance. Boredom is found to occur when students are tasked with activities that are not challenging and require little skill. People on both sides of the political aisle have criticized the education system in the United States. One of the many common criticisms of the current education system is that it is outdated and consists of industrial age values. Some people argue that the education system was created to produce obedient workers who can follow directions and fit into the industrial workforce. In the modern economy, this type of worker is no longer in high demand. Another criticism is that students lack autonomy in their education. This is problematic because autonomy is critical for child development, and depriving children of autonomy sends the message that they are not in charge of their own lives. A third criticism is that the learning that takes place is inauthentic. Our education system focuses on memorization and short-term retention as measures of learning. The current system is obsessed with test scores and grades, despite the fact that students often forget most of the information they memorized shortly after completing tests and finishing courses. A fourth criticism is that students are not given the opportunity to pursue their passions and interests. In a typical classroom, all students are made to learn the same thing at the same time in the same way. This ignores the reality that children vary in their interests and passions. A fifth criticism is that the current system does not accommodate for different styles of learning. Each student learns differently. Trying to teach a classroom of 20 to 30 students in the same way and at the same speed is not beneficial to any of the students involved. A sixth and very common criticism is that the current model of education focuses too much on lecturing. Lecturing has been described as dehumanizing because it doesn't allow for interaction. Additionally, lecturing is problematic because each student in the classroom has a different level of understanding of the material being taught, which means some students are forced to listen to things they fully understand, while others may struggle to follow what the teacher is saying. Educators, school administrators, and elected officials have spent a great amount of time and energy working to address these criticisms in hopes of improving the education system. Countless ideas, solutions, and policies have been proposed. A common point of focus around this issue is funding. Many people believe that increasing funding will increase the quality of education and the academic performance of students. They argue that more funding would allow schools to increase teachers' salaries, making teaching a more competitive profession and allowing schools to hire better teachers. It could also allow schools to hire more teachers and decrease class sizes. More funding could provide schools with better educational resources to improve student learning. So let's take a look at current funding. In the United States, the average spending per pupil is $12,424. This is the fifth highest in the world compared to other industrialized nations. Despite spending more on education than most other developed countries, students in the United States rank 30th in math, 19th in science, and 20th in reading. Overall, the United States ranks 24th when looking at combined average scores on measures of math, science, and reading. Michigan exceeds the national average per pupil spending. For the 2017-2018 school year, Michigan had an average per pupil revenue just short of $13,000. In Michigan, the average teacher's salary last year was $62,280. Considering there are 180 school days in a school year, teachers spend 36 work weeks a year teaching. After adding an additional 3 weeks for lesson planning and in-service days, teachers are working 39 out of 52 work weeks each year. That's 75% of the 52 weeks in a year. Adjusted for 13 weeks of vacation, the average teacher's salary in Michigan is comparable to someone who earns $83,040 per year and works all 52 weeks in the year. The median annual earnings of workers in Michigan is $30,416, and the median household income is $57,700. This means the average teacher's salary in Michigan exceeds the median household income and is more than double the median annual earnings of workers in Michigan. An annual income of $62,280 is enough to put an individual in the 71st percentile of income earners in the United States. When adjusted for 13 weeks of vacation, a comparable annual income of $83,040 puts an individual in the 82nd percentile of income earners in the United States. In looking at the issue of class sizes, we find that the average class size in the United States is about 25 students. Japan, the top performing country in measures of math, science, and reading, has average class sizes of 32 students. South Korea, the fifth performing country, has average class sizes of 28 students. The average class size of all countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is about 23 students. This is the same as Michigan's average class size. While many people are quick to call for increased funding to the current education system, it is important to consider whether the current system is already adequately funded and if increasing funding will actually improve outcomes. If the system is flawed, then no amount of money will produce the results we want. It doesn't make sense to keep putting money into a broken system. Instead, we need to consider innovative ways to fix the system. Most people wouldn't keep putting money into a broken vending machine because they know no matter how much money they put in, they won't get out of it what they want. They understand that the machine is broken, and they buy their snacks from another machine until the first one is fixed. Similar to this vending machine analogy, there are proponents for increasing alternatives to the current system. They advocate for increasing school of choice, access to charter schools, and vouchers that allow public funding to pay for students' private school tuition. Some people argue that the public school system is a government-imposed monopoly, similar to the Postal Service. Economic theory tells us that monopolies lead to higher prices and poorer services. In contrast, competition decreases costs and increases the quality of services. This is the theory supporting expansion of charter schools and voucher systems. When private schools do a poor job, they go out of business. On the other hand, when public schools do a poor job, they blame inadequate funding. In most industries, the free market has allowed for innovation and progress. It appears that government intervention in education has prevented the education system from reaching its potential. If schools had to compete for student enrollment, then parents would choose to enroll their kids in schools that provide the highest quality education. Effective schools would experience increased enrollment rates, while less effective schools would be forced to improve in order to compete for student enrollment. Currently, private schools are only accessible to kids whose parents can afford to pay out of pocket for a private school education. This is because no government money goes to private schools. A voucher system would change this, as parents are given the choice to send their children to any school, including private schools, and receive a voucher to help pay for the education cost. While there is conflicting evidence on effectiveness of charter schools and education vouchers, there is not enough evidence to dismiss these alternatives as ineffective. Another proposed solution is deregulation of the education system. Currently, states create standards that determine what information students need to be taught by subject and grade level. This reduces the freedom of teachers, parents, and schools to choose what information is valuable and worth teaching to students. Deregulation would allow for more diversity in content and overall education. Schools would have more freedom to choose what topics to cover. Eliminating content requirements could allow schools to give students more time to learn about topics of interest. Instead of teaching to the test, deregulation would allow schools to teach practical skills that would be useful in the workforce. Schools could decide what content to teach based on the skills desired by employers.